Well, we have some breaking news. I don't know if this is old news, new news. We'll take a look at it. The Czechs are canceling their religious registration, the Czech Republic. So we'll take a look at this. Czechia, Google Maps, here it is. It's right here, right beside Germany. And it was the Czech Republic, also known as Czechia. Czechia, historically known as Bohemia. It's landlocked country in Central Europe. So it's bordered by Austria. Now I went on the Jehovah's Witness site, and what do they say? This is one of their latest 100 years of the Watchtower in the Czech language. The summer of 2023 marks 100 years since the Watchtower was first published in the Czech language. And when the translation work began in 1923, there were only 30 brothers and sisters. Today there are over 16,000 Jehovah's Witnesses preaching, they're saying. And they're just talking about some of their trials. So there's not much on the article, that's it. So we're going to move into this article from Avoid JW. They cover the rest of the story. You'll never see any of this stuff on jw.org. And it's Czechia, 5 ministerial servants reprimands Jehovah's Witnesses under scrutiny by the Minister of Culture, a risk at losing their registration. Now this is the headquarters there, the headquarters of the Czech Jehovah's Witnesses in Prague. And the Ministry of Culture is considering the possible cancellation of the religious registration of Jehovah's Witnesses in response to the public complaints, and it has sent the organization a call to desist from illegal activities. And it mentions damaging social ties, failures to provide adequate health care to children, and concealing some parts of its teachings. And the witnesses are resisting the ministry's actions and denying any illegal actions. So we don't see this on JW.org. Now this is originally reported on by David Sizek, published in the Czech Republic, February 3rd. So this is new news, February 3rd, 2025. So they're looking at Norway, I guess, maybe. You know, it's like we said before, it's a domino effect once this stuff gets going. Now let's get into it. The Religious Society strongly objects to the Ministry of Culture's action. There is no legal or doctrinal reason for canceling the registration of Jehovah's Witnesses. David Kula, director of the Public Relations Department of Jehovah's Witnesses, told the news. I guess that was the news here. And such a step would be discriminatory, illegal, and would mean a gross interference in the religious life of thousands of peaceful citizens of the Czech Republic, the spokesman claims. According to the latest census, there are 13,000 members, and the society speaks of 30,000 witnesses and sympathizers. Now, I just looked, when we looked there, they said last year, 2023, that there's over 16,000 witnesses preaching. So this is under 16,000, 13,000 members. But then they speak of 30,000 witnesses and sympathizers. So don't know what that is. A bunch of maybe people that go to the meetings that aren't baptized. Not sure. Maybe relatives or something of witnesses. Who knows? Now, in practice, deregistration, this is, I guess, still from JW.org's position. In practice, deregistration does not mean a ban on practice. Oh no, this is the article. However, thanks to the consecration from the ministry, the Jehovah's Witnesses can use a special legal entity, a church organization, to teach in its own theological schools and exercise other special rights. These include performing marriages, preaching in prisons, or the state-recognized secrecy of confession. So they can do all of that. So they're deregistrated, but they can still practice their religion. So a lot of times, by deregistering a religion means that they no longer get free taxes, tax exemptions. They no longer, like Norway was paying charity religions money, hoping that that money would go right back into their country to help poor people. But you see with Jehovah's Witnesses, that doesn't happen. In Canada, they're looking at this as well, as deregistering any charity organization that's not helping the poor. And all over the world, we see this happening. So this is not new. Notes from Avoid JW, the Religious Society of Jehovah's Witnesses, is abbreviated to NSSJ in Czechia. For English readers, we refer to them simply as JW. Now here's the 5 offenses against the law in that country. The Ministry of Culture took the first step against the organization in September of 2024 when it sent it an official notice to cease and desist from illegal activities. Imagine that, Jehovah's Witnesses involved in crimes. What is it? Well, this is permitted by the church law if the ministry believes that a church or religious society is violating applicable regulations through its teachings or activities. And the document shows that the Ministry of Culture, led by Martin Baksic, the Democratic Party, accuses the witnesses of 5 offenses that they were supposed to correct within 3 months. And both parties involved confirmed to the news that no corrections were made. And the 3 complaints by the office concern alleged damage to social ties between individual families. There's a good one. Damage to social ties between individual families. So here you have a religion that's supposed to help people in a country. You think of it, as you're a worldly person, a government, right? You're running a country. Well, we have these religions. They're supposed to help people, but this religion causes suicide within people that leave. They can't leave. It damages the social ties of individuals and families. You want to leave that religion? You're cut off from your kids, your relatives, your spouse even. You're cut off. This is a cult, nothing more than a cult. It's a follower of men, and it damages the social ties of individuals and families. I can attest to that. I was in that religion for 30 years, and now I left in 2012, cut off from all my family and friends. Now, it goes on to say they are based on the doctrine that if someone leaves a religious community, other witnesses must significantly limit and often completely cease social contact with them. And another point accuses the organization of preventing minors from receiving adequate medical care. Like the blood indoctrination. Thousands of people die. Mothers will watch their children die over this blood doctrine implemented by the governing body. They're the ones that are guilty. They're the ones that should be behind bars for murder, for coercing their members to die and not take medical treatments. Those 11 men should be behind bars. Thousands of people are dying because of their doctrine. And it's about time that countries are standing up to this nonsense. And among the better known teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses is the refusal of blood transfusions, even in cases of life-threatening conditions. This one is a sore spot for me, folks, because Jesus taught life over death. He healed people on the Sabbath. He broke laws that the Pharisees condemned him for to help people. If you're a follower of Christ, you would know that. So we talk about that a lot on this channel, and that's about what it's about, showing love. And you see, when governments look at religions, they expect that. They expect religions to show love, or life over death, to show love over hurting people. So here's some other disputes. Dispute over the secrecy of the teachings. The ministry also sees the problem of concealing some parts of its teachings. The Secret Elders book. No one knows what's in it. Well, they have a problem with that, which is prohibited by church law. You see, if you're in the real world, if you're going to court or you're up against something like that, you get to know what the law is. But Jehovah's Witness, the layman, they do not know what's in the Elders book. They do not know what the law says. And that has to change in countries. Countries aren't putting up with that. Now, the appeal specifically states that the JW refuses to provide the ministry with clear answers to the questions about his teachings. And in some statements, it has provided the ministry with lies. Isn't that what they're doing in Norway? With false or misleading information. You see, JWs have no problems lying. It's part of their theocratic warfare strategy. And as an example of a lie, the office cites witnesses' claims that after a member expels, the normal life of the immediate family continues. Its members show love and spend time together. And that, we all know, is BS. We all know that's the biggest lie ever. They should be ashamed of themselves for telling these lies. Now, the religious organization claims that the ministry has withdrawn this accusation, and it thereby acknowledged that the JWs was transparent toward the ministry, states a document titled Summary of Facts. And the Czech Republic follows Russia and attacks Jehovah's Witnesses, which the news server received along with written answers to questions. And however, the Ministry of Culture refutes this claim. The ministry did not drop the fifth point of the appeal. It deleted the sentence, furthermore, the NSSJ conceals parts of its teachings from its members, from the justification for this point, because based on the communication with the JWs, it found that this information is unfounded, replies Jana Milkova, spokesperson for the Ministry of Culture. And according to her, the rest of the text of the fifth point and the entire appeal remains valid. So we're going to cover the 5 points here according to the Ministry of Culture. What laws are Jehovah's Witnesses breaking in their country? Number 1, restriction of the freedom to change one's religion or belief or to be without a religion. You can't do that if you're a Jehovah's Witness. They will shun you. Number 2, restricting the right of relatives as well as persons socially close to a child to contact the child, and restricting the child's right to contact these persons. And that's what happens if you're a child and you're disfellowshipped or removed. You won't have contact with your friend's family and the congregation. And number 3, restricting personal freedom by using psychological pressure to create a dependency that leads to psychological harm to individuals or their family members, or to damage to their social ties. And isn't that what's happening? This disfellowshipping, this shunning, it's restricting all this freedom that people have to associate with families. That is coming to an end. It's being challenged in this country and all over the world. Now, number 4, preventing minors from receiving the health care appropriate to their health needs. Like the blood. What if they need a blood transfusion to keep living? Thousands of people are dying. Number 5, secrecy of some parts of the teachings of a religious society. The Secret Elders Book. So they nailed it. There's the 5 points. Those are 5 points all over the world that we on this side of the fence are fighting for the Jehovah's Witnesses to make change, and they are not making change. So we carry on. Non-compliance is punishable. Jehovah's Witnesses have vehemently denied the agency's allegations of wrongdoing. We're going to look up that word and get a deeper meaning on that. Okay, I think I was saying it wrong. Vehemently. It's a forceful, passionate, or intense manner with great feeling. He vehemently denied any suggestion of improper conduct. So the Jehovah's Witnesses have vehemently denied the agency's allegations of wrongdoing. So they strongly denied it. They say we were shocked that the ministry would accuse us of this simply because they clearly disagree with some of our religious beliefs, says the PDI department, this David Kula. He's the director of communications for the JWs. And he argues that the ministry has not submitted any court decisions or complaints to the police or other authorities. You see, they want more. Like Norway, this has taken up another 14 days in court in Norway. Well, they want court. They want court time, and they want to. If you're Jehovah's Witnesses, they want to use up your money in court, fighting for this, and they're going to lose all over the world, and more countries are challenging them. And it's interesting in the Norway case that there was a reporter from Sweden, and Sweden as well is going to be looking into this if they're not already looking into Jehovah's Witnesses lying in court. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses respect the right of every person to change their religion or belief or to have a non-religious affiliation. They don't respect it. They figure that all the other religions out there are from the devil, that you're demonized. If you leave their organization, join another religion, you're disfellowshipped. So Jehovah's Witnesses do not respect people's right to leave. They believe. He goes on to say they believe that the Bible directs believers to limit or cut off social contact with a person who's chosen to renounce their beliefs by separating themselves from the congregation. However, they do not force individual believers to follow this scriptural direction. The congregation elders do not control anyone in this regard, Jehovah's Witnesses state. And we all know that's a big fat lie. That's what they tell the media, the press. I don't know why they keep doing that. They just keep lying. It makes them look bad. Their own people know this is lies. This is going to wake up people to know that they're getting out there and telling people this stuff. Now, this also contradicts information from the Ministry of Culture, which writes in the appeal that the religious community punishes failure to comply with the rules regarding the interruption of intercourse. Intercourse? The same should be done if a believer receives a blood transfusion. I think they changed their rules on intercourse recently. Maybe this is why. Maybe they got out of the bedroom of people's lives. I didn't cover any of that, but I've seen some other apostates online covering that. Now, parents, not religious communities, are solely responsible for the health of their minor children. And when children need medical care, Jehovah's Witness parents immediately take them to a doctor or hospital and strive to provide them with the highest quality of medical care, the company said, the Jehovah's Witnesses said. And they simply ask doctors to treat their children using medical procedures that do not involve blood transfusions. Note from Avoid JW, Jehovah's Witnesses claim to be shocked, if false, because they are well aware that the governments have a duty to protect the public's safety and individual rights. And when religious practices such as shunning, refusal of life-saving medical treatment for minors, or secret policies on handling various matters come under the scrutiny, it's often because they raise legal or ethical concerns. Good point. So it goes a lot further, this blood thing. They have so much on the blood doctrine. They have HLC members that sit by your bed to make sure that you're not going to take blood. If you take blood, you are kicked out of the community. You've disassociated yourself. It's one of the highest forms of sinning in that organization. So I don't know. They want to own you. They want you to sacrifice your child to the governing body. This is nothing more than a cult. This is the same as some of these cults where the Mayans were sacrificing their children to their gods. This is the same thing. If you're a JW, you are sacrificing yourself and your children to the 11 members who claim to be God's only chosen path to this earth. We know that's a cult. Okay, what about property? If the Ministry of Culture were to cancel the registration of Jehovah's Witnesses, it would mean the liquidation of their church organization and consequently all of its assets. And this mainly concerns 148 kingdom halls, places where believers meet for worship. So they're pretty serious about this. They're going to take it a step further than Norway, and they're going to dissolve all their assets. Good on them. Yeah, get rid of this gangrene that's in your neighborhood and in your country. Now, the funds obtained from the liquidation, very likely in the hundreds of million crowns, would be legally required by the state to use to support other church organizations. And the news contacted and said a religious expert who studies sex and new religious movements for a statement. He was also the first reporter on the case of the threat to deregister in December last year on the professional website, of which he also is the editor-in-chief. And Volstek has previously pointed out that until the administrative proceedings are initiated, the Jehovah's Witnesses can dispose of its property as it wishes. So I guess they're probably going to sell all their property and send it all to New York. That's what they'll have to watch. You see, all this property in these countries was created by people of that country, and the money therefore should stay in the country and help people in that country. But that's not what Jehovah's Witnesses do. They'll liquidate and send it all to those cult members, those 11 cult members in New York that you can sue. You can sue them guys as an entity. The whole world wants to get rid of this. New York Supreme Court, you can sue them. Sue them and put them in jail. They all go to a Watchtower meeting. They all belong to a Kingdom Hall, and that's where you serve them. You serve them at the Kingdom Hall. They're supposed to attend the Kingdom Hall, and unless they're going to stay within Bethel, locked up, home but hiding, we don't know. But the governing body, we ran a video on that, you can sue them, and it's been passed by the Supreme Court of New York. Now, for example, they'll transfer into an association. The witnesses reject this procedure, claiming they are not doing anything illegal. But the religionists speculate that it may be a leverage against the ministry. If the witness property were transferred to other religious society, as the law requires a liquidator to do, it would rightly be perceived as a huge injustice on the international scale. For taking money out of the country and hiding it like that. They're going to break other laws. So in that case, according to the Volstek, it would not be very important whether the witness could or could not transfer their real estate. And here's a note from Avoid JW. They said, what is suggested here by Volstek is similar to what the Jehovah's Witnesses attempted to do in Russia. They tried to move their assets to members of the congregations, but it was ineffective. And Russia still confiscated their properties and other assets. Okay, well, following the example of Norway, the deregistration of a church in the Czech Republic is unprecedented since the Jehovah's Witnesses have not made any corrections. By the set deadline, the Ministry of Culture can initiate administrative proceedings to cancel their registration. And however, the law does not set any time limit for this, the ministry has not yet started the proceedings. And the ministry is currently evaluating the documents it received from the Jehovah's Witness members carefully and is thoroughly investigating the situation, which will leave no reasonable doubt, the ministry said through a spokesman. And the Volstek hopes that the dispute will not end up with the organization being removed from the church register. In 2024, the doctrine regarding what could possibly be classified as a disruption of social ties under the church law changed. This is something that could restore some trust between state authorities and the religious community, says a religious scholar. I think it's too late, personally. I think they've crossed the line of no return, Jehovah's Witnesses, in the world. I think they can't change this. I think they're done. A broad deregistrations have already occurred for similar reasons. Jehovah's Witnesses lost their church registration in Norway, 2022. Unlike in the Czech Republic, they received an annual state subsidy of 16 million Norwegian kroners, or about 1.4 million American dollars, for their activities. The legal battles over their registration continue, and the appeal of the witnesses will be heard by a court in Oslo in February. That's happening right now. We put online up to day 6, so we're waiting to see what happens day 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, as in the Czech Republic, state authorities were primarily interested in the separation of former members from their families and friends. This is the shunning. And this shunning is going to sink this religion. And that's their only control on their people. Once they get rid of shunning, I think their religion falls apart. But the religious community often compares the Czech situation to Russia, which has banned the teachings and labeled the organization as extremist. I agree with that. It should be banned. It is an extremist. It's a cult. It's these people. You see, all the money from these people goes to New York. goes to this cult. Nothing goes to help people. This whole thing should be just squashed, just like what they're doing in Russia, the Czechs, in my opinion. Now, believers there must practice in secret, otherwise they face severe penalties. According to the data from the U.S. government, Commission on International Religious Freedom from 2020, the Russia state imprisoned 10 witnesses, held 38 in custody, and sent 26 to house arrest. And the accused received long sentences. Human rights organizations draw attention to mistreatment of prisoners. They're all heroes in the Jehovah's Witness religion, all of them. They turn a blind eye. Jehovah's Witnesses were granted registration in the Czech Republic in 1993, and the process was not without controversy. Specifically, it involved lying to the authorities about 3 questions, and these are similar allegations that the witnesses are facing in their current dispute with the ministry. And you see, this is where the apostates, us that have left, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that are speaking out, this is what's changing things now, folks. The governments aren't going blind. Like in Norway, there's a whole group of us on the outside that are telling it the way it is. And this is helping. And we know the religion. We know how to read their elders' book, and we know what they do. And the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves are bold-faced lying in court. It's just unbelievable. Now, as a religious expert and co-founder for the Society for the Study of Sex, Prokop explains the authorities consider the refusal of civilian service to be the main problem. The ban on transfusions, blood transfusions, and the military service was also not liked. But after consultations, the ministry wanted to turn a blind eye to the transgressions. So it was assumed that if they answered that they taught it, they would get the registration anyway, he describes. And to their great shock, they wrote on all 3 questions, no, and the Jehovah's Witness does not teach this. Everyone knew that they taught it up until then, and they had preached how important it was not to lie and not to deny one's faith. And suddenly they turned a blind eye, and the religionist recalls his surprise at the time. So they lied about it. They said, no, we don't teach this stuff. We don't teach shunning. They just lied about it. However, the ministry eventually approved the entry into the church register, and Remus points out that the persecution benefits this religious society, and their lying, on the contrary, outrages ordinary believers. And in the congregations themselves, this has caused great disillusionment with the leadership, which told them that they would rather go to prison than lie, explains Rems, in 40 years of totalitarianism in our country, and the number of their members has increased 15-fold. A large number of people who left the Witnesses because of the lies, and because they are not persecuted, they have had practically the same number of members since 1995. And for this reason, he is not a fan of the idea that the organization should now lose its registration. Once they lose their registration, they will start acting like martyrs again and attracting people. Martyrs attract people. Okay, well, that brings an end to this article in the Czech republics and the 5 ministerial reprimands. So, So they don't like the same thing that everyone else doesn't like, the shunning, the restrictions of freedom to change one's religion, restricting people to associate with relatives as well as persons socially, to contact a child, restricting a child, and restricting personal freedom by using psychological pressure to create a dependency on the governing body. It's psychological damage. It causes suicide eventually. Can. Number 4, preventing minors from receiving health care appropriate to their health needs. All the deaths, thousands and thousands of deaths every year. And number 5, secrecy of some parts of the teachings, their secret elders book. So Jehovah's Witnesses, you guys are being called out in the world. The Czech Republic, the Czechs, Czechia, they don't want you. They're going to cancel you guys. That's it. So, what can I say? I just deliver the news. But what I do know, take your dog for a walk, go and enjoy the sun, the grass, whatever's out there, the trees. Here we have snow and ice on the streams, but you can still enjoy it. The birds are flying over, spring's coming in, and you can live your day with love. We'll see you guys on the next video.